Imagine trying to pass a law that forces the entire internet to check everyone's ID at the digital door, only to realize that the actual tech companies who literally build the privacy software that you need to make the internet actually work are literally looking you straight in the face and just saying, hell nah. Like, that's the exact chaotic situation that is unfolding right now. Because on June 15th, the UK government dropped pretty much a massive announcement about expanding pretty much their internet rules to ban anyone under the age of 16 from social media completely, instead of everyone just quietly falling in line. Well, the biggest privacy companies on the planet essentially just declared a full-on industry revolt. Like, I'm talking about Proton, Mullvad, like Mozilla, the actual like holy trinity of open internet and like data protection, the absolute goats. Like, they just united to draw a massive line in the sand against this whole entire age verification nightmare. For months, politicians have been acting like they could just pass these sweeping surveillance laws and tech companies would just magically figure out a clean way to scan everyone's face or pretty much hoard physical passports without anything going wrong. But the backlash has officially gotten way too organized for them to really handle. Like, these privacy giants, they aren't just like writing polite letters anymore. Like, they're just aggressively weaponizing their platforms, just running unhinged anti-surveillance ads campaigns, and just outright refusing to turn their software into like digital bouncers for like institutional overreach. It is honestly the ultimate high stakes game of chicken, because these governments, well, they expected these exact software developers to just go and build the compliance infrastructure for these brand new laws. But instead, the companies that are actually holding the keys to encryption, well, they are just publicly warning the world that the entire system is just a trap. Like, if you've been following the whole like sudden explosion of digital checkpoints popping up everywhere from like the US, Texas, for example, to the UK, well, you already know how fast this is spreading. But for the first time, we're watching a coordinated corporate resistance that just might actually break the back-end implementation of the whole plan. And just watching these lawmakers realize that they have absolutely no leverage over companies that don't even collect user data in the first place is honestly just pure comedy gold. So to really understand why these companies are just completely crashing out right now, well, you have to look at the absolute absurdity of what lawmakers are actually demanding behind the scenes. So when the UK launched this newest push to restrict social media for everyone underneath 16, well, they tried to frame it as this incredibly simple, like wholesome safety measure to just protect the kids online. But the absolute reality is that to check if someone is a kid, well, you inherently have to force literally every single adult on the internet to prove their identity too. Like, for example, Proton, they came out immediately with a brilliant, like, totally unfiltered response, pointing out that there's zero technical way to verify a minor's age without actually building a whole, like, permanent mass profiling dragnet that just tracks absolutely everyone's digital, like, footprint. Like, they literally, like, reminded everyone about how, like, previous data hoarding attempts had just been like absolute like train wrecks, like the Discord breach last year, for example, proving that whenever you force platforms to hoard a massive pile of sensitive real-world IDs or live selfies, well, a hacker is just going to break in at some point and just steal all of it for themselves. And this isn't just like a spontaneous freak out over one single like announcement. Like, this is like a culmination of a massive narrative arc that started like back in May, when a powerhouse coalition of 19 independent privacy organizations, including like the Tor project, Mozilla, Proton, Mullvad, all of those, well, they all just joined forces to publish a historic open letter warning the world that mandatory digital checkpoints are just like fundamental, like incompatible with a free society. Like, politicians genuinely thought that they could just coast past that May backlash and just like sneak those compliance tools into like the background while closed consultations ended, but instead the resistance has completely escalated, because honestly these companies realize that if they actually don't fight back right now, well, the open internet as we know is going to permanently vanish. And let me tell you, the actual way these specific companies are fighting back is honestly just so satisfying to watch, because they are completely breaking the traditional corporate PR playbook. So take Mullvad, for example. Well, their co-founder, well, they went on the offensive earlier this year against the UK's broader push for device scanning and mass surveillance. Like, they didn't just put out some boring, heavily sanitized, like, I don't know, press release that nobody even reads. Like, they literally went out into the streets of London itself and started projecting a massive banned anti-surveillance advertisement called, and I quote, and then directly onto the walls of major buildings after the UK's like advertising clearance body just refused to let it air on like British TV. Like, that is the exact kind of high energy, unapologetic resistance that just completely changes the game, because it forces everyday people to wake up to the reality of digital checkpoints. And meanwhile, while Mozilla has been executing its own sort of masterclass in refusal by formally throwing down massive opposition against any rules that would force like VPN providers to act as age-gating checkpoints, basically arguing that turning a privacy tool into an identity tracking filter just completely defeats the entire like legal and ethical purpose of why people use encryption in the first place. These companies are realizing that they actually hold an insane amount of leverage because their entire business models are built on like zero knowledge architecture, which pretty much just means that when a state official demands that Proton, for example, or Mullvad hand over user log or integrate an age scanning widget, well, the companies can just quite simply look them in the eye and say that they physically cannot do it because the data literally just does not exist on their servers. Like, it is a beautiful technical roadblock that is completely pretty much paralyzing the enforcement side of these laws. And watching these multi-billion-dollar like government surveillance initiatives just get like completely jammed up just because a few fiercely independent software developers refuse to compromise their encryption standard is just the exact kind of like failure that makes this entire like timeline so incredibly fascinating, honestly. At the end of the day, what we're witnessing isn't just like a simple policy debate about tech safety. Like, it is a permanent, defining struggle, honestly, for the future structure of the entire internet. And the good guys, well, they're actually refusing to cooperate with the whole blueprint. Like, governments around the globe, well, they have spent the last few years just assuming that if they just threaten tech platforms with enough astronomical fines, well, everyone will just eventually give up and build the whole infrastructure for a dystopian digital ID passport system. But they completely underestimated what happens when the actual gatekeepers of web privacy form an organized resistance network. By choosing to stand up, call out the hypocrisy, and build tools specifically designed to bypass these sort of like digital bouncers, while companies like Proton, Mullvad, Mozilla, well, they are just giving like casual everyday users an actual shield to fight back against this sudden wildfire of institutional overreach. It gives you some hope because it proves that the corporate tech world doesn't always have to cave to state surveillance, and that a dedicated group of like actual ethical like engineers can fight back against a bad law just by standing firm on their principles. Like, the lawmakers, they wanted a completely locked down, heavily profiled, honestly, just like playground where they could just track your late night like browsing habits down to honestly the exact microchip of your device. But instead, they triggered a massive industry revolt that shifted the balance of power back towards human privacy. So yeah, that's it for this video. Drop a comment, like, subscribe, and all of that. And also, this is the first video after I reach 15k subscribers, so thank you so much for that. I am planning to make like an actual like Q&A announcement video later, so I'll go in more depth about that. But yeah, see you next time.